ever shot in SLOG3, looked at your footage and asked yourself, what's all this noise? Or maybe your highlights are just gone. If that happened to you, you're in the right place. Let's get to the bottom of why most people expose SLOG3 wrong and how you can fix it once and for all. SLOG3 is Sony's picture profile designed for maximum dynamic range. Dynamic range is the difference between the darkest shadows and the brightest highlights your camera can capture. SLOG3 is specifically engineered to squeeze every bit of details into that range, giving you incredible flexibility in post. However, this means that the image looks flat and lifeless until it's properly graded. In fact, SLOG3 is not about giving you the perfect image, it's more about retaining all of the details and everything that the camera can record and preserve for you to use in color grading in post-production. So it's not made to have a perfect image straight out of the camera, as we said, it's made for you to preserve those highlights, those shadows, and put them all together in color grading. And while SLOG3 gives you unmatched flexibility when it comes to dynamic range, it comes with a catch. You underexpose it and all of your shadows are gone, you overexpose it and your highlights are gone. And this is why it's very important to understand how to expose SLOG3 in every single scene. Doesn't matter if it's a high contrast scene or a dark shot at night. You need to understand what's the best way to expose SLOG3 at all times. One of the biggest issues that I see is underexposing SLOG3. If you treat it like you would treat something like a Rec 709 or like a Cine 4 or a Cine 2, you just will get the worst upload results ever. See, if you underexpose SLOG3, it means that you're crushing the shadows too much. And when you try to bring those out in post-production, it will look horrible and you will add so much noise to the shadow. And the reason why so many people underexpose is because they don't use a monitor, for example, or they trust the camera meter. See, sometimes, depending on the situation, the camera meter, which is this little number down here, just doesn't work well. And the reason is because it's analyzing the whole image, or it's analyzing a specific source of light or not light, and that will make your image looking a lot darker than it actually should be. One big mistake that I see a lot of people doing is rather shooting at 2000 or 3000 ISO instead of switching to the second base ISO of 12,800 and then adding filtration with an ND filter. I feel like this way, in a specific circumstance where there is not enough light and you want to add light with sensitivity through ISO, this way works a lot better than adding ISO to 2 or 3 or 4000, because that way you will get so much more noise than you would actually get at 12,800. Let's just say that if you're exposing SLOG3 just through your camera screen without any conversion light, that might be the only reason why you're exposing SLOG3 wrong. Another problem with looking at your camera screen and only checking the S-Log version, so the flat look of your footage, is that without any supplement like zebras, as I just said, it's very hard to understand when your highlights are clipped or not, because everything is flat. So you don't understand actually what's clipped or what's underexposed. And this is another very common mistake. So start with ISO, and specifically with native ISO. For example, the Sony a7S that I'm recording this right now has got a native ISO of 640 and 12,800. I believe the FX3 and the FX6 is exactly the same. So taking this in consideration, you want to stick to the native ISOs. This is where you get the maximum dynamic range with the lowest amount of noise. And yes, obviously if you're shooting in very bright conditions and you want to stick to that 640 ISO, you will need ND filters, so definitely invest in good ND filters. One trick that I use all the time, especially for high contrast scene, is zebras. Zebras allow me to either expose for my skin tones or for my highlights. Honestly, for my skin tones, I never use it this way because I feel like some of the time it just doesn't work that well. But if you do want exposure for skin tones, you have to set your zebras to 70 plus. This allows you to, whenever your skin tones are overexposed, you will get zebras on them and you can just bring down the exposure. But I honestly think the best way to use zebras is to preserve highlights. And to do so, just set up your zebras to custom. I use a custom 2 and I put up to 95 plus. This way, whenever the image reaches that 95 plus range on the highlights, it will show a zebra, and this means that it's overexposed. Usually, if you keep your highlights below that, you'll be fine. So this is how I use the zebra. You can set it up however you want, but I think this is the most effective way for sure. All right, this is a lifesaver. Honestly, doesn't matter what I'm shooting, I always have my monitor on the top, and it's not only to frame my image better and just to look at what I'm shooting better, but it's also to monitor with a conversion LUT. I use my personal LUT, but most monitors have integrated SLOG3 to Rec 709 LUT that you can simply adapt to your footage. And this doesn't change anything of the footage what it looks after, but it gives you a preview of what the footage looks like right now while you're shooting. And this is very important because the media of the camera really doesn't matter most of the times. It's not correct, especially in very low light scenes. I find that the meter is just wrong. So having a monitor with a conversion LUT that allows you to see what the image will look like at the end, it's a lifesaver, and I will always recommend it. So definitely get a monitor with a conversion LUT so you can monitor exactly what the image looks like, and you can judge in real time. Do I think this is too dark? Do I think this is too bright? Is this blown out? Is this not? This helps me so much. So it doesn't matter what I'm shooting, I'm always having a monitor with a conversion LUT. When in doubt, especially in low light scenes, always expose to the right. This allows you to look at your histogram that you can set up on an external monitor or just simply on your camera, and this will allow you to preserve the highlights. Obviously, this is a balance, but if you see all of your image going to the left, you know something's wrong and you want to balance that line, that curve, that spike out. Obviously, there will be scenes where it's way too high contrast to have a perfectly lit scene. Sometimes you're outside, you're shooting, you don't have any lights, and maybe there's sun or the sky is just blown out. So you have to remember that sometimes we can blow out things, you know, we can crash shadows and blow out highlights, and that's okay as long as it's made consciously, this decision. And if it's a high contrast scene, usually what I'm thinking is storytelling wise, what makes sense? Does it make sense that the character is more silhouetted, or does it make sense that the character is more visible? So think about that and act accordingly. Also, if you're shooting with auto white balance, please stop doing that because this will mess up your color grading and obviously doesn't affect any S-log in itself, but always shoot with a specific white balance and don't let the camera choose the white balance because it will just mess up your color grading in the end. So to close this off, I've honestly been making all of these mistakes myself too. Don't think that you're the only one. There's so many people. I'm still making these mistakes right now. Sometimes I look at the scene and I lift my ISO because I just need more sensitivity to light from my sensor at points, and I just don't have the possibility to add light or just to make the scene look brighter. So it's not always wrong. It really depends on the situation. But if you know really the basis of how to expose SLOG3 right, this will help you so much in your filmmaking journey with Sony cameras because you can expose your camera, you can make it look exactly the way it's supposed to look. And honestly, so many times I get asked on my videos, what camera do you shoot with? How come my Sony doesn't shoot that way? I got the same camera, I can't get the result. And it all comes down to the way you understand exposure and you expose SLOG3 and also obviously color grading. So this is it for this one, guys. I apologize for my voice. It's a bit rough today, but I just came out of a 2 weeks flu. So it is what it is. I hope you learned something new. Thanks for sticking around. Leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya.